Hello everyone, today we'll be going over the terrifying story of Alex Messenger's ordeal in the wilderness. At the time of this story, Alex was 17 years old. Him and 5 other people had planned on doing a 6-week whitewater canoe trip. For those of you who don't know, whitewater canoeing is a sport of paddling a canoe on a moving body of water, typically a whitewater river. Whitewater canoeing can range from simple, carefree, gentle moving water to demanding, dangerous whitewater. I go over a wide variety of different types of stories and cases on my channel. I recommend you guys to go check out my videos I already have up on there. And if you like this type of content and the other content that I put out, please do like and subscribe. I would much appreciate it. In July 2005, Alex Messenger's group of 6 had set out on their summer adventure from Lake Holodaya in the remote Canadian Northwest Territories. They had been told that they would be lucky to even see a bear. I felt like I had a good appreciation of what risks we were likely to encounter, Alex says. On top of my mind was flipping the boat and other things that can happen in the white water. After the group had stopped and made campsite, Alex left his campsite to climb a steep ridge that promised panoramic views of the tundra. It was the highest point for at least 50 miles. You could see lake after lake after lake, he says. Then directly across the ridge, Alex saw something else, a flicker of brown. His body recognized it before his conscious mind did. It triggered all of the physiological responses in a fraction of a second, he says, before I even realized it was a grizzly bear. Finding himself face to face with a 600-pound grizzly bear had not crossed his mind. Now with the predator just 30 feet away, Alex felt his airways enlarge, his adrenaline spike, and his pulse double, preparing his body to flee, fight, or hide. The bear seemed to be making a similarly rapid assessment. It was on all fours, wide-eyed, and clearly startled. It was like we had stumbled upon each other and both had the reaction, "What am I looking at?" Alex wanted to run. Instead, he said, "I fell back on my training." He started slowly backing away, speaking in a low voice, keeping his eyes averted, trying desperately to persuade the bear that he was not to be feared. But the bear wasn't convinced. Grunting and growling, it lunged towards Alex 1 or 2 steps at a time, as if it was testing him. The distance between them was shrinking rapidly. Even as Alex was edging away, I knew that I couldn't run, but I wasn't really sure what to do at that point. He says, then the bear charged. Despite their immense bulk, bears can run up to 40 miles an hour. When it's about 15 feet away, Alex could feel the ground shaking underneath its paws. He yelled for help, knowing that no one could hear him. Then instinctively, he threw his 15-pound camera case at the animal galloping towards him, and it hit him square on its snout. The strike was forceful enough to turn the bear's head, allowing Alex to jump out of its path. As soon as it realized that it had missed him, it turned around and came at him again. Even in the moment, he remembers being struck by its agility. I'd never seen anything move as quickly as that bear. The other thing that registered above his terror was the smell. It smelled like a dog that had never been bathed. For excruciating seconds, bear and boy circled each other, bullfighting style, as Alex says, but with each round the circle grew tighter. The bear was snapping and swiping at Alex, who took a glancing blow to the shoulder, then another across his back, but just as he had dodged its jaws, the bear reached up with its forepaws and hit Alex on his face. I felt like a mosquito getting swatted away, Alex said. My head went to the side, then I went flying. Mid-air, Alex realized there was no way that he could outsmart or outmaneuver his opponent. There was nothing physically that he could do. You've got a 150-pound 17-year-old versus 600-pound grizzly bear. He just realized that, he was about to die. It was a horrible feeling for Alex. As soon as Alex landed hard on his tailbone, the bear was upon him. Its head was right above his hip joint, its jaw already around his leg. He felt as though the teeth would go in on both sides, and he blacked out from the pain. When he came to, the bear was looping quickly in the other direction, having eliminated the threat. It seemingly wanted to make a quick getaway. Still playing dead, Alex watched it disappear over the edge of the rise. Then took his chance. He set out in what hoped was the direction of the camp, his surging adrenaline just about overpowering the growing heat of his right thigh. The whole time I was waiting for the bear to come back and finish the job, he said. He staggered 150 yards or so onto the lip of the ridge, his right leg now screaming in pain. His trouser was soaked with blood, and he yelled down to the campsite, "Bear." Below, his friends reacted with disbelief. They were in a big bug-proof communal tent making pizzas for dinner. The group's 27-year-old guy, Dan, had some emergency responder training, and he carried out an initial assessment. Alex's right leg had been in the bear's jaw, causing a deep puncture to his thigh and 4 more compression wounds elsewhere. He had claw marks across his back, around one ankle, and to an earlobe, and the beginnings of a black eye where the bear had struck him. At some point, the tips of 2 of his toes had been sliced clean off. Alex had no recollection of how that happened. The group was more than 100 miles from the closest settlement, but after their base camp was consulted via satellite phone, an emergency evacuation by plane was deemed too logistically challenging. While Alex could not walk, he could paddle, so the group resolved to continue along the route towards what had been their intended destination, the tiny settlement of the Baker Lake in the Arctic territory of Nunavut. Remaining in close contact with experts by phone and monitoring Alex's day and night for signs of infection. Damage to Alex's muscle tissue had slowed the flow of blood to his wounds, and Dan was tasked with regularly reopening his wounds and flushing them by syringe. Alex recalls the excruciating pain and biting down on his leather-covered multi-tool to cope. The group's stores of ibuprofen had to be carefully rationed, but for Alex, there was some comfort in putting his fate in the hands of his teammates. It can be hard to let go, but I think it's a really important step. It helps to bring some peace and remove stress. With Alex only able to paddle with reduced mobility and sometimes having to encounter white water, the group made slow and often painful progress. But Alex says being able to contribute was a really good feeling. That I was able to assist in my own rescue was empowering and cathartic for me. I had this mindset of, okay, what do we have to do next? As long as Alex remained stable, the priority was getting him a rabies shot within the 12 days of the attack. But after a grueling 5-day passage, his wounds started showing signs of infection. Dan improvised his first ever surgery, cutting out of the dying tissue, like trying to cut through the tough parts of a raw chicken, says Alex. Nevertheless, the infection continued to spread. Now that they were closer to the settlement at Baker Lake, the helicopters were available. The call was made to evacuate the patient. It was decided that one of the teammates, Mike, would accompany Alex on his journey, because it was thought that he was less likely to develop post-traumatic stress disorder if he stayed with someone he knew. Ironically, Alex recalls Mike was the one who had persuaded him to come on the trip, when he had been wavering over the cost. At Baker's Lake, Alex received 12 hours of intravenous antibiotics before being flown south to Winnipeg for the first of 5 rabies shots. His parents drove through the night from the family home in Minnesota to pick him up. For 6 weeks, he took oral antibiotics and followed a program of wound care management. 2 months after the attack, the puncture on his right thigh had healed. He regained full motion a year later through personal training. Alex is now 35 years old, and he still recalls the time of his attack, and he is easily startled. Today, obviously, Alex got back home. He was with his family and he recovered fairly well. This is a great reminder of what can happen in the wilderness. We need to be able to protect ourselves at all times. As always, once again, be careful, be safe, be aware.